Hello, good evening. I am your host, Chris McKee, aka Super Comic Guru Alucard, and we are back for another episode of my 500 favorite songs. Now, with all the other episodes leading up to this, we've counted down from 500 now all the way to 101 with last week's episode, and today we're going to count from 100 all the way down to 51. And then the next and finale episode, that'll be the last 50. You'll get to find out like what are the 50 favorite songs of Super Comic Guru Alucard. So, ooh, very exciting and interesting. Before we begin the countdown, special shout out again to Shannon for being very sweet. She actually said some very touching words to me recently that just kind of inspired me. So, yeah, and of course, shout outs to all the longtime other fans, supporters, everybody. You've been great, you've been wonderful. The band's gonna have more albums dropping this year, so check those out as well. And in case you haven't yet, the SOS Brigade Quartet, which is my jazz band, just recently dropped their debut album, The History Lesson, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. So feel free to check it out. And well, without further ado, let's begin the countdown and keep it true. Number 100 is Will Smith with Getting Jiggy with It. Now, the reason I picked this song, a lot of people know Will Smith as a very successful actor. He's done some great movies. I'm not even knocking him as an actor. He's actually fantastic too. But a lot of what he's actually done musically gets overlooked and discredited and is really underrated for how good the quality of the music is and its overall cultural significance and impact. Because you look at it, technically, him and Jazzy Jeff as a duo, the Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff, were the first hip hop artist to ever win a Grammy. That's part of what makes him so great. And then you look at it, he's actually become a rapper who's won a lot of Grammys. Like next to Lil Wayne and Eminem, he's won quite a bit. And it's, yeah, his music's clean, but he doesn't need to swear to kick a funky rhyme, tell a story, and he's always got dope beats. So really, you hear a jam like Getting Jiggy with It, that's a jam you could dance to any day, and it's because of the beat. His rhymes are slick, they're fresh, you can't top them. 99 goes to Bob Marley with his classic reggae jam, Is This Love? Now, I picked this song because he's got plenty of very catchy, well-known, iconic songs even. There's so many I love. Actually, one of the first CDs I ever got was a Bob Marley Greatest Hits, but that was the first song on it, and I kind of understand why, because overall, the way he sings is really nice on it. It's got a really mellow groove, a nice kind of beautiful message of seeking shelter within love, and it's very poetic, it's very romantic, it's deep, and it really was Bob Marley at his best. And it's sad he had to die so tragically, and then especially with all the new allegations of this mysterious person coming up that they say they DNA identified as Bob Marley. I mean, I don't know if that was just a rumor, but I did read an article saying they had confirmed it to be true, but look into it yourselves, feel free. But yeah, rest in peace to the legend Bob Marley, and definitely a fresh jam. 98 goes to the R&B singer Michelle Williams, who was also a member of Destiny's Child, with her song You're the Greatest. Now, she was actually sort of a late bloomer or a late comer when it comes to the music scene as a solo artist, because she had worked for many years with Destiny's Child. They had had such a successful career. Beyonce had already taken the leap of going solo, and so did Kelly Rowland. But Michelle actually, believe it or not, had an album before all of them, but it was on the gospel music scene. She had released quite a few albums, but it wasn't until about 2006 when she started making like solo R&B music, which I find that whole unexpected album, the debut of hers, that has this song in particular, it was really incredible. In fact, it was hard to pick a song off that record to really deem as this one for the song, because that whole record is fantastic start to finish. But this one, to me, had just kind of the most profound message, so I went with it. 97 goes to the classic psychedelic rock band The Doors and their song Riders on the Storm. Now, this song is great in sort of every aspect of it. It's very tragic how Jim Morrison mysteriously passed and everything, and that was near the end, and they speculate, oh, maybe there's some sort of coincidence to do with the song, but really he's telling the story of this killer on this road, on a road, and a family is taking a vacation, and they're sort of crossing paths. It's almost, he's using an idea of how fate, destiny are sort of intertwined and linked, and paths just happen to cross through life. It's, we're all riding on the storm of life, and it's a very profound sort of deep way of explaining the story, and a great take on it. The instrumentation, the drums, the guitar, the bass, all really great. The keys are fantastic. I actually felt, in my opinion, that was some of the best keyboard solo work I've ever heard in my entire life. So yeah, that's a classic for sure. 96 goes to the soul R&B funk legend Isaac Hayes and his song Hyperbolicsyllabicsequedalymistic. Now, that is quite a mouthful. You're like, wait, what? That's why I do write it out on the screen. But oddly enough, like as long of a title as it is, that is what it is on the record. It actually comes from an album called Hot Buttered Soul. Now, this record was actually his breakthrough success record, like really charted well, sold well, helped really establish in the world of music. He's also done acting. He was the voice of Chef on South Park, oddly enough, and he appeared in movies like Shaft and Hustle and Flow. But he really was a great soul singer, and he was a great composer and instrumentalist, which is what the album Hot Buttered Soul and this song shows. I mean, that jam and guitar riff, it's so memorable. The moment you hear it, you instantly you'll never forget it again, right? And everything with that groove, as wild and weird as it is, it's just um, perfect weirdness in a masterpiece. Number 95 goes to the 90s grunge rock band Pearl Jam and their song Jeremy. Now, I picked this song because it has kind of a strange cultural symbolism and significance in its own way. It was banned actually as a music video originally on MTV because of its controversial nature. In fact, they had to re-edit it to even eventually release it to this day. They got a lot of heat for it, but it's because of what the song was about. It was about a newspaper article that the lead singer and some of the other band members had read about a boy who had actually killed himself in school in front of his classroom. He was basically getting bullied. He didn't really have a good time going on at home, and sadly they just didn't notice him, and he just had enough. They didn't even know what he was planning, what he was up to, until he was right in front of the classroom in the band. And the song really captures the feeling of being lonely and isolated, and I think the band could relate to that in their own way. And I think they were trying to make a song like this to say, you're not alone. Everybody's kind of wandering their own sort of path through the darkness and the shadows, especially when we're young, because we don't really know or understand life fully yet. 94 goes to the R&B singer Ashanti with her song Rock With You, in brackets, Aw Baby. And why I really like that song is that's kind of the one song that always comes to mind when I think of Ashanti. Like, I've heard her on so many good songs, and there's even like a remix she did of a Biggie song that was incredible. But that's like, I'm like, wait, what's that one song by Ashanti? Oh, Rock With You, because it's just got a catchy, memorable title. And I remember I used to hear it at every like school dance when I was a kid too. I remember that, like especially when I got to elementary school, I moved to Hamilton, I'd go to the school dances. That became a popular song that they would play, and like it kind of has almost a nostalgic quality, a vibe to it that every time I hear it, I'm like, that's a nice smooth jam just to throw out with water, relax, maybe have a nice drink on the beach or something. Totally like the video, right? That's what we're coming by. And yeah, no, it's a jam for sure. 93 goes to the saxophonist and composer Grover Washington featuring Bill Withers with their song Just the Two of Us. Now, a lot of people actually often mistake that Grover Washington is the one singing on the song. Bill Withers is the credited vocalist. Grover Washington was actually a jazz musician and composer, saxophonist, and he came up with the main idea of the song, all the main instrumentation, the melody, composed it all, plays great sax on That's kind of what really ties the song together, that bright, nice, romantic rhythm or bow, right? And I mean, Bill Withers definitely was the right singer for the job. In fact, I think that's why people just think it was him, because it just so naturally fits the song. But no, he was a guest singer featured on it, and the song actually won a Grammy. I mean, it's been sampled by every artist from Tupac to Eminem. So it's just one of those classic masterpieces, that romantic jazz ballad of you could do anything if two people that are the right people are together. And for reals, I feel that. I'm still looking for that other person. Then it'll be just the two of us. I wish. 92 goes to Dr. Dre's song, Let Me Ride. Now, the cool thing about this song, ironically, it came out in the year 1992, which is the year I was born. And oddly enough, about this song, it's sort of, in my opinion, I feel it is the greatest song by Dr. Dre, despite some people might say it's nothing but a G thing or fuck with Dre Day, like of the Death Row era. Like, those are kind of the hit singles people remember. But I would argue actually Let Me Ride was the greatest song on the record. The DOC and Snoop Dogg wrote it for him, and he made the beat. Now, the instrumentation is just phenomenal. It's bananas. The way he uses the Parliament Funkadelic samples, the lyrics are on point, and the song won a Grammy. I mean, the video had Ice Cube in it. You really could not top overall just the greatness of what that song, Let Me Ride, was for Dr. Dre. His best song by far? My opinion, yes. You could disagree, but at least check it out, see what you think. 91 goes to the Japanese pop singer Mai Yamane with her song Tasogare. Now, there's actually an album with the same title. It's the opening track of the album. The reason I picked it is because I'd actually stumbled upon it accidentally when I started hearing some of the more classic, old school Japanese jams. Oddly enough, that was when I had stumbled upon it, and I loved it right away because she has a very haunting, almost rock blues quality to her voice, and it works well with that song and others on the record because of like really rock style guitars. It really gives it a blues rock vibe to the Japanese pop, so it's cool. And the way Tasogare, which translates to Twilight, it's a very deep poetic song. Her haunting vocals, that psychedelic wild guitar riff. It's a masterpiece of Japanese music from very early on when they were just starting to develop it over there. So it's fantastic for sure. 90 goes to Charlie Parker's classic jam, Koko, with Dizzy Gillespie on trumpet. And that song is kind of forever known as Charlie Parker's signature tune, because basically when he was developing his style early on, he had gotten booed off stage. He was very young, he was embarrassed, so he went to the woodshed, so to speak, started practicing 12 to 15 hours a day so he could perfect and master his craft. He learned how to play in every key, every sort of way to tie notes together, and he perfected it. He mastered the style that still to this day nobody could really play like, because he could hit notes so perfectly and fast and visibly accurate, like to the ear, even hearing the tonality of it. But yet, it would be so difficult to even hum certain patterns he would do. And Koko is the perfect example of that. I mean, he actually took bits of classical influence when he would improvise this particular tune. And it was based on a song called Cherokee, but once he started playing his own changes to it, that's when it evolved and became Charlie Parker's Koko. 89 goes to the rock band The Police, which obviously have like a reggae ska punk influence, and their song Message in a Bottle. Now, I'm sure anybody who's heard my music could probably tell, okay, this guy's probably into The Police, because you listen to my one song Nail Gun, it's definitely inspired and influenced by Message in a Bottle in particular, the sending out an SOS, because my record label and the band is the SOS Brigade, right? So, well, with the band, it's the SOS Brigade Quartet. With the record label, it's SOS Brigade Records. Just so, because of the separate distinctions, I don't get sued. But, no, for reals, it's a really great jam because, like, the guitar, the drums, the bass, they're all really banging with it. And the way Sting sings this almost very simple melody of a man who's like kind of lost wherever he is, and like almost like he's trapped on a desert island, but then they transfer that feeling to feeling like that in high school sometimes. It's very quite deep, and it's thrilling just to see it all kind of come together so perfectly. And I've even been complimented a lot that I look like Sting. I don't 100% know if that's true, but a few people have said it. So I'm like, oh, well, praise to Sting and, of course, the Police then. 88 goes to the singer and pianist Ray Charles with his song, What I'd Say. Now, this was a song that was originally improvised, and then the crowd loved it so much, Ray decided, okay, we're going to actually have to record this, like, make it a serious tune. And to me, it always stands out as Ray's greatest contribution to music, both with the sound that it influenced, like, rock and roll so much after. Like, so many rock and roll artists started getting their ideas from What I'd Say. And you hear it, it's like he really brought like sort of the wild, crazy edge back to music that was kind of starting to die down in that time period. And the way the piano, the bass, the drums, the horns, everything is so like fast, hard grooving and driving. And then he's got the backup vocals like kind of hyping him up in the background because it's split into two parts, part one, part two. Part one's more him solo, but once part two starts, the choir just kind of chants in with what he says, and then it really gets hype. And overall, that's just, in my opinion, Ray's most important song, too. 87 goes to the old school rap crew, Terror Squad, and their song, Pass the Glock. Now, some people might not even know this song. Their most successful hit actually is Lean Back, which this was actually at a period when the original members, a lot of them were no longer part of the group, whereas Pass the Glock had all the original members. Because originally it was Fat Joe, it was Big Pun, it was Cuban Link, it was Triple Sace, it was Armageddon, and it was Prospect. 6 of them. And they all were equally lyrically great and dynamic and diverse in their own way. So you get to hear all of them together. You really could see how if things had went sort of better for Pun and he didn't pass away and the group didn't dissolve after and lose a lot of its key members, like Pun, Link, and Sace, they could have been essentially the greatest rap crew as far as lyrics of all time. And that's my opinion. But the record, the album by Terror Squad speaks for itself. And Pass the Glock, just to hear all 6 of them together, that's when they were in their prime and, in my opinion, unstoppable. 86 goes to the British rock group Herman's Hermits with their song, Listen People. Now, they are actually more known for other songs, but they did this song in a movie. And the reason I chose this one is because this song, I always felt it was very beautiful. It was very poetic, profound, simple, but it really spoke to the heart. It talked about, like, sort of, like you would want everybody to know how you're feeling, but it's almost like a feeling of being too shy to say it out loud yourself and almost needing to announce it to the crowd. But also, it talks about the heartaches, the heartbreaks, all the sort of struggles of teenage love. And you even see a lot of that transfers into adulthood. Like we still go through those things even when we grow up, right? So it just overall is a very pure example of how they really were a great group too in their prime. Like not even just for the mainstream poppy hits like something tells me I'm into something good and stuff like that, but this song I feel really speaks to the heart. 85 goes to the Toronto rapper and reggae singer Kardinall Offishall and his song Everyday Rudebwoy. Now, this song I actually heard near the end of grade 8 and going into grade 9 for the first time. I actually remember I loved it so much, just that sort of laid back, mellow reggae groove, the way Ray Robinson sang the chorus, the way Kardinall kind of raps it, sort of laid back, almost sung with a half of tone sort of way of rap too. It was a very smooth jam, and it's very nostalgic when I hear it every time. I love that song. It's just a great sort of tune, like to think of just everyday life. And he's talking about how, like, he relates the song often to a girl that's chasing him, but then he's like the way the girl's looking down on him, he actually relates it to haters looking down on him, and really he's just like, hey, this is how I live my life, like, and he's just telling his story. And I think he does it really good. In fact, I think he's probably one of the most underrated Canadian rappers there's ever been, because he's very good too in his own unique way. 84 goes to the classic 90s grunge band Nirvana, fronted by the man himself, Kurt Cobain, and their song, Come As You Are. Now, a lot of people know them for other songs like The Man Who Sold the World, which was the David Bowie song they covered. They did Grey, and even Smells Like Teen Spirit is their biggest song. But Come As You Are is kind of up there. And personally, that's a favorite for me because the way the melody of that song is, the way the solo is, almost the haunting vocals and the stories he tells of like this man who's like thinking about going to hunt down his friend and kill him because of like an issue, a dispute. And it's a really deep, powerful song, and it kind of reaches like a whole sort of feeling of isolation that you could see like many of the other members, especially Kurt, was struggling with at that time. I mean, a lot of people have speculated like why he died, may he rest in peace, but I think he was a very troubled artist because of a lot of industry issues mostly. 83 goes to DJ Paul Oakenfold featuring Brittany Murphy with their song Faster Kill Pussycat. Now, the sad thing is, she was actually a very great actress, very famous, well known for that too, and like, that turned out to be his biggest song for that reason because she actually sang on that and she didn't sing on too many records. She actually had done some soundtrack work for some movies like Happy Feet, and she was supposed to appear in a biopic about Janice Joplin. She was going to play the lead role, but I guess the budget fell through near the end of filming it, and they kind of scrapped the project. It's sad because what the song shows is she had a very unique, interesting bluesy quality to her voice. And actually, I had the fortunate pleasure of talking to her a bit on Twitter a few times before she passed. It's very tragic. She was always very sweet and supportive, and she was the kind of person that believed in the underdog, which is why she worked with people like Paul, and she would even look out for younger people going into the industry, like strive for your dreams, but always take care of yourself too. And it's just sad that I guess, you know what, not having the right people in her circle sometimes, she couldn't take care of herself the best either. 82 goes to Maximum the Hormone with their song Zatsubo Billy, which translates from Japanese to Billy in Despair. Now, what this song actually is from is Death Note. It was actually used as the second ending theme, and they had also composed What's Up People as the first opening, well, the second opening theme, but the first of their songs. And both songs are unique, but what I like about this one in particular, in fact, I would actually say this might top as one of their favorite songs of my period, and why I picked this one. Just overall, the way there is sort of the mix of all these clashes, like there's screaming, there's death metal, there's rapping, there's beautiful harmonic singing, some great wild instrumentation with all these changes, and sort of this deep, profound message at the center of it all that, like, when you feel cornered and you're in despair, like you're trapped, like it feels like acid's raining down on you, you just can't escape it. It's a very deep, Japanese artists are very poetic with their lyrics always, but very deep interpretation of like what they're trying to display as what the characters were going through in the show too. 81 goes to the legendary saxophonist and composer Ornette Coleman with his composition Lonely Woman. Now, this is one of those songs that it really, I'll put it this way, when it came out, it really got sort of the 50-50 vibe of people really loved it and were blown away by its unique diversity and originality. Like, whoa, these cats are all playing different things all at once, but they're all like tying together. Even when they're playing off key, they're just all sort of connecting to the message of what their music is saying. And the way they were just sort of speaking through their instruments, it was profound. Ornette was a master and sort of a pioneer of what we would look at as free jazz, which even John Coltrane would later go on to develop. But Then you had the other 50-50. They were like, oh, it's a disorganized organization. Like, it's all over the place. It's not real music. They're just playing notes. But like I said, you really look at it as they look back on it now. It's kind of groundbreaking because they were the first to try and even add sort of a whole new experimental creative approach on the idea of playing a composition. 80 goes to the Notorious B.I.G. with his song Ready to Die. Now, overall, I picked this one because I felt like Biggie really goes the hardest with his lyrics. The beat is just dynamic, and even Diddy sounds pretty cool on it. He doesn't even need to rap. He just his little parts in between sound kind of ballin'. And you know what? It's sad because the way all the private investigations around his death went on with Biggie's mom paying somebody to look into it, they suspect Diddy might have actually set his friend up, Biggie, and had him killed. So, like, you see, Biggie really was ready to die because he probably knew he was surrounded in an environment like the ghetto. People were always gunning for him. He might have to gun for other motherfuckers. And then you really look at it, if what happened to him with Diddy is true, even the people that were around him in his own circle could set him up and he'd be ready to die. So you look at it, he lived a life of very dangerous caution, and he was one of the greatest hip hop artists to ever live. A master of freestyle, never wrote anything down. He wrote stuff down in his earlier years before he actually recorded enough that when he could just memorize it in his head and he'd tell it as a story. Now, it's just sad that he's gone, may he rest in peace, but Ready to Die, it's a masterpiece of his skills at his best. 79 goes to Megumi Hinata with her song Catch You, Catch Me, which first appeared originally as the first opening theme of the Cardcaptor Sakura soundtrack. Now, I really loved the anime, and I actually loved all the music for it, both the new and the old versions and the spin offs. In fact, I'm actually very excited for them to sort of finish off the story and tie all the loose ends together in the future. But this song is just really great overall because I mean it's got some great guitar work on it. The solo is amazing. Um, Very poetic, deep, simple lyrics like "In love, you gotta catch me and I gotta catch you," and it's sort of like a cute theme to it. And then I mean even the horns that back up and hype up like the boom and bass and the drums keeping it all together. Some great piano. It's just overall it's a fantastic example of like an anime song and Japanese pop. 78 is the rock band Black Sabbath with their song Never Say Die. Now, some people might wonder, they might be like, why did you pick Never Say Die? Like Iron Man, Black Sabbath, Paranoid, like a lot of people might find that to be a strange choice. I actually find that that was their most deep and inspiring song. Maybe it's what they would consider more corny mainstream pop rock, but I found what they were actually trying to do with that song was break into new territory and make it so it wasn't just always about dark things, actually leave the audience with a positive, inspirational message. And I'm not saying I don't love all the other jams like Iron Man and Sweet Leaf, Paranoid, Black Sabbath, like all those songs are great, but I don't know, Never Say Die, I just felt that's overall Black Sabbath's most profoundly deep song, and it's one of the last ones where they all recorded it as a full group. So, before Ozzy went solo. 77 goes to the legendary R&B queen diva herself, Mariah Carey. Now, she's had plenty of ups and downs throughout her career, very successful, long going. Um, Very incredible vocal range, like the 8 octave ranges and everything you always hear people talk about. You get to hear that in this song, Emotions. Now, Emotions is the song I picked because, yeah, she's got a lot more songs that would probably be bigger chart toppers, although in this time, originally, when that song came out, it actually was a pretty big hit. Now, what makes this song distinct is it has a very 90s R&B-esque quality to it, so it's kind of like her in her pure raw prime in the beginning of her career. Plus, she totally belts out those like 8 octave ranges for almost like vocal solos throughout the track. And it's a very deep sort of love song about like the emotions are just taking control of me, and Honestly, you couldn't ask for a better performance from Mariah Carey than hearing that on record. Like, if she sang that live, I would like to go back in time and watch it. Like, no joke. 76 goes to the hardcore, later in his career, reached mainstream, Cassidy, and his song, I'm a Hustler. Now, he has had other songs that were bigger hits, like My Drink and My Two Step. Personally, I felt that, like, I'm a Hustler, as much as it was a mainstream hit, and he didn't make that much off it because of the royalties sampling Jay-Z. He actually ends up paying Jay-Z pretty much as he would make, and Jay-Z's literally just sampled the chorus, right? So, career-wise, it's not really looked at as a good single for him, but it really speaks to what he is, that he could salvage like even the littlest bit of scrap and make a dime off it. And that's really what he was trying to go for, I think. So in that sense, he's really epitomizing what the song is. But yeah, you hear him do other songs where he's like less mainstream and traditional. He's actually considered one of the greatest battle rappers too. And a song like that where he's really ripping the punchlines, you get to hear like he learned from the masters like L, Biggie, and Pop. 75 goes to the legendary actor, tap dancer, and singer Bill Robinson with his song My Ain't That Something. Now, this appeared on the Stormy Weather soundtrack, a very big, groundbreaking movie for its time. And he was actually the lead star. In fact, most of the movie is based around things that happened in his life. Slightly changed for dramatic purposes in Hollywood, but considering this was in a time of segregation, but it was in the war, they were actually given a huge budget to make this movie, and they consider it one of the greatest movies of its time for that reason, because you had massive talent like Fats Waller, Cab Calloway, Lena Horne, and of course the legend himself, Bill Robinson. And he did this song for the soundtrack, which that's where you get to hear the whole song, right? And it's sad that he didn't get to record that many records that survive to this day, like in performance, right? Because realistically, that song itself shows he was a very charismatic, charming singer in his own unique way. 74 goes to the Japanese pop rock group Do As Infinity, or DAI, and their song Fukai Mono, which translates to Deep Forest. Now, this is actually one of the earlier Inuyasha themes that I heard that just blew me away. In fact, I love the song so much. Like, I understood the translation of, like, before I really learned my Japanese that well at the bottom of the screen. I understand that. But it only plays a bit of the song in the show. So I was like, wait, I want to hear like the full song of this. This is really beautifully put together, like all this grand orchestration and stuff like behind the beautiful singing, the drums, everything. I'm like, okay, what is this? So I look it up, and when I actually fully listened to the song for the first time and heard it, I was just kind of like in a moment of like total stillness and bliss. Like it just blew me away. And really, they're a great band. They've got tons of other songs, but that's just one of my all-time favorites. Hence why I made the list. 73 goes to the rock group Oasis and their song Supersonic. Now they have lots of other great songs which are very big hits too, even bigger than that. Like you look at Wonderwall, their biggest hit, great song, huge. Champagne Supernova, that's pretty good too. The reason I picked Supersonic was that's actually the first time I had heard Oasis and knew it was Oasis though. I heard Wonderwall before, I didn't even realize it was Oasis until later on. But it was when I heard Supersonic one night. It was on a Much Music channel video thing, throwbacks, right? So they played like all the older rock and hip hop, all that stuff, right? They're playing that video and it's like Oasis, Supersonic. So I'm like, I heard Oasis the band, but I'm like, I've never heard anything I know at that point, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is a great jam. And then once I was like, yo, I gotta hear more of this. Then I found out, oh shit, they do Wonderwall. And then I was like, oh, they did all these great songs. Now, as a band, they're fantastic. But apparently, they've broken up many times because the two brothers, the Gallagher brothers, they always fight. And like they get drunk, get into a huge fight, and then the band breaks up. 72 goes to the Japanese pop singer Namie Amuro and her song Come, another Inuyasha soundtrack theme song, which you'll see These songs really were the songs as a child that, like, I really cherished hearing because it was like experiencing a whole nother world of the Japanese culture, the sounds, the music, very deep poetic romanticism. And that's what you get with this song too. It's very cool because it's almost like the idea of fate drawing two people together, which, whether for good or bad, they're meant to meet face to face, whether it's for love, whether it's for a conflict, whatever it's for. It's a very profound idea that it's like you could kind of feel that there's a destiny approaching in the air, and just the way she sings it with this unique quality, this very interesting, cool, like techno J-pop electronic beat. It's just fantastic. 71 goes to a very old rhythm and blues group called Shades of Blue and their song Oh How Happy. Now, they did have an album. It wasn't that successful. In fact, Oh How Happy actually did better as a single, and that's what they're forever remembered as. Now, if you actually really listen to the harmony of the group, the way each of the singers had their own unique style of singing, the way they're singing this sort of happy message of they found love and now they're like eternally happy. I mean, it is corny, it is cheesy, but it really it's not over the top because of how good the quality of the music is, because of how deep and high and just the way each of the singers ties their harmony together. It's just it's staggeringly incredible. And that's why I feel like that song is one of those songs that probably everybody has heard, or if they've heard it, they're like, wow. And they would never know if you were just like, oh, you heard Shades of Blue, oh, how happy. Like, that's one of those kind of songs, but it's a classic still. 70 goes to the rock group Deep Purple and their song Smoke on the Water. Now, I love this song ever since I was a kid. I was obsessed with the guitar riff. I had it on a burnt CD because that was the hip thing to do then. And that band, they were really incredible. I mean, they had great instrumentation as far as guitar, bass, drums, keyboards. You hear that on like stuff like Highway Star, uh, Hush, Woman from Tokyo. They had very unique, diverse sounds. And Smoke on the Water is unfortunately that one song that everybody remembers that not as many songs ever were as big for them. Sad. But Smoke on the Water is the perfect sort of anthem for them and shows how great they are because it's one of those timeless, memorable songs that once you hear that guitar riff, it's stuck with you for life. That ba 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 ba. Bum, 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 bum. That's actually one of the first songs I learned how to play on the piano. I could play it on the saxophone too, but yeah, it's just one of those songs that sticks with you for life. And way to go, Deep Purple, y'all rock. 69 goes to the Japanese pop idol singer Komi Hirose and her song Groovy, which often gets confused with Groovy Love Song because of the lyrics. And it's another one of those card captor soccer songs that the beat, the piano, the bass, the way it's got some great horns too, just really liven up the action. I mean, the way they got the band together to make those soundtrack songs for those animes. I mean, they really get cream of the crop musicians, and Groovy has that. Plus, the whole idea behind the lyrics of the song, the way Comey sings it about like wanting a fresh new love that has its own sort of groovy original rhythm to it, like its own different vibe. And it was a huge influence on me because that's a song I actually sampled when I made the song Impulse with Ayane Ono for my first album. That was the main melody we basically played around with guitar, changing the instrumentation and stuff, was based off of Groovy, and it became Impulse. And also influences from Tatsuo, but that's a whole other stuff to talk about. But Groovy, it's dope. In fact, if people wanted a really catchy, hype, danceable Japanese pop song, Groovy's the tune for you. 68 goes to the legendary rapper Cannabis and his song Channel Zero from his self-titled debut. Now, he worked in the military. He was an underground rapper that basically worked on a few other people's stuff. He got basically picked up and worked with Wyclef for this debut album, which he later blamed that because Wyclef was kind of lazy and didn't really try to change up the beats on it, that's why the record flopped. And it wasn't that much of a commercial success, but it did show just how good lyrically he was and good his musical ideas were, which Channel Zero really stands the test of time as one of those great examples on the record. There's some other great examples like Second Round Knockout, This Is How We Roll, I Honor You, but Channel Zero is his masterpiece because this is a man who lived among the government secrecies in the agency, working in the military, and he's seen all the behind the scenes stuff they keep secret from us, like all that, like technical military jargon that they say is classified. He speaks about it, and Channel Zero reminds us, like, y'all gotta tune in and be aware of what's around you. And Cannabis, the way he lyrically delivers it, is phenomenal. 67 goes to the 90s classic R&B group En Vogue and their song My Lovin', in brackets, Never Gonna Get It. Now, the great thing about this song is this was the biggest song of theirs. It's the song that everybody remembers, and it's what helped their album Funky Divas actually become their first #1 album. Now, this was in a very competitive era where they were competing with groups like Destiny's Child and stuff. So it was very hard for, a group like that was girls, like, to really try and outshine like the top selling ones of the day. But you hear the way their harmonies on that record and the way they have that sort of funky, hip hop, jazzy, like throwback sound, almost that like international laid back Arabic in a club kind of vibe to the instrumental. And then the way those girls are each telling their stories of lament, like why you'll never get their loving again, the harmonies of each of them. I really feel like they are probably one of the greatest groups of their genre and one of the most underrated as well. 66 goes to the legendary jazz trumpeter and composer Miles Davis with his his take on the composition It Never Entered My Mind, which had also been done by other jazz trumpeters such as Chet Baker, you name it. But what makes Miles' version special, in fact, I'd say it's the best take on it. In fact, he said when he played it, he was thinking of his father who had recently passed away. And there's a deep, haunting quality. Like, it almost feels like it's a voice that's reaching into your soul and sharing all the sadness of life with you in times. Like, you just feel it through your whole spirit. Like, you just open up in ways when you hear Miles play. And It Never Entered My Mind is just one of those deep things. And what blew me away about it is it's one of the first songs I'd ever heard that was jazz. It was by accident, just downloading jazz songs to see what it was back in the day, right? Miles Davis, It Never Entered My Mind. I put it on, and I instantly got sad thinking about how my father was never there. And then finding out that story that Miles was thinking of his father when he played it, I was like, wow, that's really magical how it all kind of tied together. 65 goes to the classic hard rock group Led Zeppelin and their song Over the Hills and Far Away. Now, some people are probably surprised, like, why didn't you say Stairway to Heaven or The Immigrant Song? Or, you know what? You're talking to a guy, too, that had Led Zeppelin's 4 disc greatest hits. I actually loved all their songs. I was a huge fan. I'm not going to even disagree that none of those songs are equally as good, but purposely, for the sake of the list, only picking one and picking like the personal favorite, the one that really, before I got the 4 disc greatest hits, that stood out to me, that really like impressed me about them as a band. It was Over the Hills and Far Away, and that's because of the change ups from acoustic to electric throughout the song. That it just, I'd never heard anybody do it. The way the drums progress with it, the way he sings this kind of almost folksy song of lament to it. It's got everything that makes Led Zeppelin great in a short song to summarize them, in my opinion. 64 goes to the Grammy-winning R&B singer Chrisette Michele and her song Be Okay. Now, I actually heard her music first on a Jay-Z song, then the song she did with Nas, and then I got her second album, Epiphany. Now, I was so blown away by Epiphany, I wanted to hear this first album, and that's when I actually discovered Be Okay, which the reason I picked this song is because I got this record when I was out the York for this reason, because this song was so good. I was like, I bet you the rest of the record's phenomenal, and it was. It's her most jazz influenced album. Like, you could definitely tell, like, she went to school to become a jazz singer, and it influences into the R&B of her music. And there's times I even think she sounds a lot like Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald, and it's actually really cool the way she does that. Plus, she's a very good rapper. She's had many ups and downs, sort of being the indie artist throughout her career, but she's won a Grammy, and she's also had a #1 album with Epiphany. But "B.O.K." stands as one of those inspirational songs that, like, stands the test of time as how great of an artist she always has been. 63 goes to the legendary MC himself, Tupac, and Hearts of Men. Now, he's got so many songs that are big hits. This is kind of one of those later in the career, in the middle of the album, not really a single kind of song. So people are like, why did he pick this song in particular? I actually find that Tupac was being his most bare naked and honest on this song. That he was really telling you, like, be careful what's inside, because what people front on the outside isn't always true to how they are. And he knew, he learned from the hard experiences of being shot, being set up, betrayed, and sent to jail for things that people had openly admitted he didn't do. So, seeing the evil and corrupt shadiness behind the scenes, it's like, be careful, beware what's in the hearts of men. And he was, like, speaking right from the pit of his soul, and that's why he goes hard. He actually spits some of his deadliest, most real lines. And I mean, with that West Coast Dr. Dre type of production, which it wasn't him on that, it was Daz, but it's fantastic. It's slamming. Actually, no, it was DJ Quick that did that one, and he was probably one of the greatest producers on the West Coast next to Dre. 62 goes to the alternative pop rock group Lilix and their song "It's About Time." Now, a lot of people might remember it if they hear it like, oh, I've heard this somewhere, because they used it in commercials for Dawson's Creek and stuff like that. Plus, the video actually got some good play. They're a band that actually got biggest off a single that they did for the movie Freaky Friday, which they did a cover of the song What I Like About It. They actually give it a punk rock vibe. It's pretty cool. I like their version better, being honest. It kind of adds a whole new hype energy of what they like, right? And they really were a great group, because here you had four girls that each were very talented at their instruments. You had the keyboardist, the guitar player, the bass player, and the drummer, and they all could sing, and they would harmonize together with this beautiful, lush harmony. And even though they didn't have that much success outside of North America, especially after that first album with the hits like "What I Like About You" and "It's About Time," they still continued to sell gold in Japan and released two other albums. Unfortunately, the group did eventually lose some of their original members and broke up, but they were great. 61 goes to the classic electronic pop new wave group Tears for Fears and their song Mad World. Now, I picked this song because the beat is really, like, wild. It's trippy. It's out there. In fact, I heard it once when I was high, and I felt like I was falling into another universe or something. It's pretty crazy. But, like, what I will say was, the lyrics too with that song, and the way he sings them. Because they had two singers actually in the group, two main singers, and they would alternate between the two. The singer who sings that one, he did a great job, and the way the lyrics are talking about, like, just growing up every day, experiencing life, and you're looking at everything as sort of a test, a learning experience, but then it really makes you think just how crazy it is that this is just going to go on and on and on and on, and it's just not going to stop until it's almost like game over. And that's what really makes it a mad world. Like, we're forced to play this game. And just their sort of philosophical approach to life with the music, it's incredibly trippy. And that's why some people like the Gary Jules version, because it's more deep and sad. I personally like Tears for Fears version because it kind of blends the craziness of reality better. 60 goes to the legendary man himself, Frank Sinatra, with his version of My Way. Now, Paul Anka also did a very good version. There's a unique version by the Sex Pistols too. But Frank Sinatra's version is kind of that timeless version that it's like, that's really Frank singing at his best, because it's like Paul wrote it, but Paul was writing it from the image of Frank Sinatra, writing it from his perspective. Like, Frank has been the man, he's done things his way, he's traveled far and wide, he's, looked high and low, he's gone up and down, but he's still, doing things his way. And just the way you hear Frank sing it, it's like he could really feel what he was singing, and the way everything is just kind of timelessly put together with his arrangements, his orchestration, and all that. It's just, that's the timeless version that everybody remembers. But hey, not knocking Paul Anka. I mean, he's really great for writing it too, and then also the way he sings it too, he makes it his own. So, but definitely that's why I was like, well, I gotta give Frank his due. His version really is a masterpiece. 59 goes to the Canadian rock group Rush and their song Subdivisions. Now, they have more famous songs like Tom Sawyer, Limelight, Big Money, things like that, Working Man. But the reason I picked Subdivisions is because I felt like that was also their most profound and deep, like poetic song, sort of. Like, as far as lyrics, like discovering like the isolation that comes when you grow up, you go to school, you go to work, you do these things, and then feeling like left out, like you don't fit in, you don't belong, like sort of the black sheep, the outsider, and wanting to fit in, but that everybody has sort of their own groups, and you're really just trying to discover what group you fit into in life. And I mean, the way they started using electronic keyboards with their work at that period of their career, they really give the atmosphere of this wild, like, other world, which life could be its own world. Like, everybody sees it differently. Neil Peart, which may he rest in peace, plays some great drums on it too. So definitely check that out if you've never been familiar with that song. 58 goes to the legendary jazz bassist, composer, and pianist Charles Mingus, also known as the Angry Man of Jazz, and his classic composition, Fables of Faubus. There's other versions where he uses lyrics called original Faubus Fables, and Columbia Records actually wouldn't let him use them because it was about this governor who was kind of racist and was responsible behind what is historically called the Little Rock incident, where they wouldn't let African Americans go to the school, and the National Guard had to basically be called in to defend them, right? So Mingus was angry. He made this song about this like racist guy who was kind of letting all this happen, and he wanted to be like, "Tell me someone who's ridiculous," and his drummer would respond and be like, "Governor Faubus," and then he'd be like, "Why is he so sick and ridiculous?" And then he'd say, 2, 4, 6, 8. They brainwash and teach you hate, because they were like preaching this idea of not wanting to integrate. So they were parodying like the idea of the ignorant racism in a very satirical way. And it made a profound positive statement, like fight for your rights of freedom, your individuality, your equality. But also, that's why he had to kind of keep the lyrics off at first, just to really get it out there, because they would have challenged him otherwise. 57 goes to the Seventh day Adventist old school rap crew, the Boogie Monsters, and their song Altered States of Consciousness. Now, this appeared on their first album, Riders on the Storm, and what they did with that album was they were heavily influenced from the Doors. So they actually had a live band that were backing live bass, drums, guitar, everything, keys. It was all very psychedelic and wild sounding, and they had some great production, some great beats. They had different ideas and concepts of trying to take the Seventh day Adventist philosophies and share them with the audience in a way that it could still pass as, like, dark, hard, scary hip hop kind of stories, but still actually pass a message of positive faith of their beliefs, which I actually became baptized as Seventh-day Adventist. I never really left the religion, so I guess I still am. And that was a group that I got in when I first became Seventh-day Adventist, and I still love their music to this day. I mean, they actually backed away from music in the music industry because they believed that it contradicted their beliefs. I'm not fully with them there, but I'll give them props. Y'all made some funky jams, and that one, you had all 4 original members. That's one of the best for sure. 56 goes to the Japanese pop singer and idol Anza with her song Tobira wo Akete, which means Open the door, please, roughly to translate. Now, that appears as, of course, the second opening theme of Card Captor Sakura. And a lot of people, they always confuse the title with, isn't it called Dreaming? Like dreaming because of it, right? But no, that's just one of the lyrics in it. The actual song is, and what she sings in it is, Open the door, please, Tobietta World Cafe. Now, it's actually saying that, like, it's like opening the door to someone's heart. That's what makes it so profound. And the Japanese pop having that romanticism, and then the way the beat is, the way it's got the horns, the glossy, like perfect production sound to it. I mean, it's just one of those songs that every time I hear it, I can't help but sing along and maybe start dancing, right? You know what I'm saying? That's just me though. 55 goes to the old school rap crew, Eric B. and Rakim, and their song, Microphone Theme. Now, I love this song. This would definitely be my favorite song by them as a duo. I love a lot of songs. This is the masterpiece. In fact, I would say this is one of my favorite just rap songs, period, because this song helped me identify with myself when I became a rapper. Like that sort of addicted quality to needing to rap on a microphone to a beat, write rhymes, and just the obsession with creating art that way. It's like I could totally relate to like what Rakim was describing, because he's saying it's like you're addicted to cigarettes, it's like you're addicted to drugs, it's like you need the fix, but it's just to have a hip hop beat, a mic, and a mix. So you know what I mean? He was just transcending sort of the idea of an addiction to music, and I guess it was something I could identify with, and I still think honestly that's one of the greatest rap songs ever made. As far as the beat, the scratching, the way Rakim's really given such a great witty analogy with punchlines and metaphors of being addicted to music. It's hip hop at its purest prime best. 54 goes to the legendary singer Jeff Buckley with his song Grace. Now, he is another one of those unfortunate, tragic cases of a great singer, very talented, unique, haunting, distinct voice that nobody really compares with still to this day. Um, the thing about him that makes it so sad is like there's so much mystery and like confusion about him, because he had actually created this album. He had come out on the scene, and it wasn't really like realized just how great and special and talented he was until after he passed. But it's like later on people go back and they say that there has never been another singer quite like him still to this day. And the way he would accompany himself on the guitar, it's like it feels like if ever they're trying to find a comparison to a haunting voice, like to describe that to somebody, Jeff Buckley is actually the prime example, because he really is the perfect case of that. 53 goes to the Japanese rock group High and Mighty Color with their song Pride, which comes off the Gundam Seed Destiny soundtrack. And it's really cool because of the way they're using like Japanese pop mixed with rock. There's even a bit of hip hop, very deep, sort of inspiring lyrics about like a very relatable message, and like I ain't gonna back down, especially if you hurt my pride, kind of thing, right? And it really ties into the show well. It really fits with some of the characters' emotions throughout it. I could relate myself having a lot of pride in myself as an artist, which it is expected. It comes with the territory. Like all artists have quite a lot of pride. It's a natural sort of thing that comes with it. You want to believe in yourself, because if you can't believe in yourself, ain't nobody else gonna believe in you, right? So that's why it's a very relatable song. I mean, the way the instrumentation, the guitars, the keys, the drums, they're bang on. That bass is bumping, and I mean that singer's voice. It's just the icing on the cake. It's everything you need right there. 52 goes to the UK jazz funk hip hop artist Blair with his one hit, Have Fun, Go Mad, which got used in soundtracks like Dunstan Checks In throughout the 90s, and it actually had a cool music video and everything. Now, this was his one hit. Now, because he actually sold it to the rights to Dunstan Checks In, and it actually did pretty well, especially once it got released on box offices and stuff, he actually made a shit ton of money. He didn't actually ever need to make music again, which is why he retired, and that became his one sort of golden song. But it's one of those songs like you would hear, like I would hear in the '90s, like watching that movie, and like you couldn't help but dance to it. Like it's some funky like jazz. It's got like a bit of hip hop just to keep the groove like really steady and moving, and then his lyrics are wild and trippy. He actually had a whole different, unique kind of flow. It's almost like a Jamaican patois reggae kind of like rapping vibe he had, where he would like tongue twist everything. He was very unique and distinct. Just sad we couldn't have heard more music from him, because that song really is kind of like a one-hit wonder. That, well, they had one hit, but they hit a home run with it. 51, our last song for this evening and this episode, goes to the Canadian alternative indie rock band Metric with their song Monster Hospital. Now, this was still when they were indie. This is still when, before they had made the big commercial peak of success with Help I'm Alive, which got used in Grey's Anatomy, and Give Me Sympathy, which was a very big single for them. What I liked about Monster Hospital is it's got that punk edge to it. It's got that very dark, sinister, like metal distorted vibe, and yet there's a haunting quality to what she sings. The video is very dark, disturbing, and trippy, but I can't help but like that song, because it's almost one of those songs like if all hell was breaking loose, you'd still kind of want that playing in the background, because it would hype you up to kick some ass, right? Like if all hell was breaking loose and, like, let's say zombies were breaking free, like you would be inspired and motivated to kick ass hearing that song. So it's totally awesome. Like it's one of those yeah kind of songs, but hype song for sure. Anyways, that concludes our program and second last episode of the show. Next episode's the last one, final 50. Hope y'all excited and prepared for next week when we give that to you. Now, if you're still unsure what songs have been mentioned, you can always go back, look at the other episodes. Hopefully you've enjoyed them. And also, please keep in mind, like I've specified in many other episodes of this and in the comments, like feel free to ask any questions about any of the artists or songs I mentioned. If you have some comments or some feedback, anything you want to know. And also, like, don't like take this as cold hard fact that these are 100% the 500 greatest songs of all time. I'm not saying that. My opinion is not the same as like 5 billion people in the world. Unless 5 billion people agree with me, my opinion is not 100% solidified as fact. So I accept that. I'm just saying these are like 500 of the greatest songs. If I was really going to sit there and say, these are the ones that impacted my life. These are like, 500 different sort of flavors, vibes from different artists. And these are the ones that kind of stick out with me the most. So, hopefully y'all like it. You'll get an idea to check out some of these songs. You'll find new music you love and dig. And that's the whole goal. If I accomplish that, well then, job complete. But anyways, shout outs to everybody watching. Shout outs to everybody who's been watching and supporting. Like I mentioned before. And till next time, have a good night. Super Kami Guru Alucard, your host, Chris McKee. Oyasumi Nasai. Peace out.